Hi, I'm Westin Gillis, and I'm with Alex Clark. We're going to be presenting on the economic impact of minimum wage law. It's important to understand that minimum wage didn't always exist. Minimum wage was actually introduced for the first time in 1938. It was started by the FLSA, which is the Fair Labor Standards Act. One of the reasons this was created was to create some continuity. At the time, businesses had much more power. Employers were able to pay employees very little money, and sweatshops ensued. This was able to give the employee more power over time. This was important because the Great Depression at the time was making it so that people were having issues eating, sleeping in a place that's safe, keeping a house, keeping a family together, dealing with medical issues, etc., etc. Now today, the living wage is different. At the time, it was created to be able to match inflation. Raising the minimum wage to $9 an hour today would return the value of the payment to where it was in the 80s and similarly around 10 to 1968. Minimum wage has been trying to follow the change but has fallen behind steadily from where inflation would account for today.
There are also ethics involved with minimum wage laws, and there are both positives and negatives to both sides. Positives would be that an increase in minimum wage would cause an increase in overall income and disposable income as well. Also, there are negatives. When wage expenses are increased, businesses would either have to cut the jobs or increase the price of the products that they are selling.
Now, while a lot of these decisions are made on a federal or state level, the problems generally end up in the local area with economy. Businesses have to compensate for new laws, and because of this, they have to make changes to their business relationships. Under the scenario of $10.10 an hour for minimum wage, there would probably be a reduction nationally of about 500,000 workers across the market, but about 16.5 million low-wage workers would see a lot of gain in their earning. Now, under the $9 an hour scenario, only 100,000 jobs would be lost, but similarly, only 7.6 million low-wage workers could see a boost. So there are gains for each scenario, and they're correlated depending on how much is given for each one. Now, the effect of the increased minimum wage laws, they can be easily seen on a large-scale economy, but the local economy reflects it more because it affects it from the bottom most. A lot of local businesses would initially suffer because the increase in cost would make them cut jobs. They don't want to go bankrupt, so generally cutting workers is the first way that they can go about saving their business. There are other ways, but those will be gone over later.
With an increase in minimum wage laws, you can also see the effects of the laws in the law of supply and demand. So as price of a commodity or service increases, the effect of demand for the product would also decline. This is because of an increase in cost. If a company has to raise prices, their demand for the product is going to go down. And as the price of a service or good increases, so does the amount of services and goods offered at that price level. So you can see how this is the relationship is directly proportional with costs that are associated with minimum wage laws.
Now, many legal scholars have debates among raising the minimum wage to accommodate for inflation. According to a study at Gonzaga, some believe that minimum wage increase could be necessary, and the reason being is because the disparity between pay and what is needed to accommodate for inflation is going larger and larger over time. And they contest that accounting for inflation doesn't push employers to hire less. In fact, because it's across the board and all employers have to deal with this, there would be no stymie to either competition. Competition would stay the same, therefore they wouldn't have any issues, and they could accommodate by either raising prices or cutting corners in other areas, because employers are always needing employees. Other scholars disagree, and they think that raising the minimum wage, in fact, wouldn't help people become financially independent. And the reason is, minimum wage isn't livable today, and because of this, individuals that are being paid minimum wage aren't the primary earners in a household. These critics are saying that minimum wage increases would actually reduce the opportunities of an unskilled worker to get a job. This would lower the hiring rate of an employment pool, and because of that, getting a job and becoming active is more difficult.
With minimum wage laws, you can see the effects on businesses, both large scale and small scale. With a raise in minimum wage, though, it does not mean a direct correlation that employment rate will fall. Businesses will, though, have to cover the cost in other manners, such as either having a lower profit margin or having higher prices, or the worst of which most businesses won't want, a lower profit. And so, since businesses and employers have more power when it comes to hiring, this is why the FLSA has a minimum wage law to prevent people from not having a livable and fair wage. So, with wages being increased, companies will less likely to be hiring unskilled workers, either that or they'll be cutting jobs overall, and they would be paying specialists less by cutting their salary. The age demographics of minimum wage law would also be impacted with an increase in minimum wage. The typical worker who has a minimum wage job are teenagers age 16 to 19, and it also goes up to ages 20 to 24 who work at minimum wage. So with over a quarter of the workers in today's market making minimum wage, these are mostly because they're unskilled or they're in school trying to earn a job that will be skilled so that way they can have a better livable wage. And only people over 25 who have a minimum wage job is about 4% of the workplace. So those would be the people most likely affected by a minimum wage increase. There are, however, counter-arguments to an increase in minimum wage laws. Some believe that raising the minimum wage would pay some workers more money but would also reduce the amount of jobs that are available, which would therefore increase unemployment. These individuals tend to believe that business owners will opt to hire less unskilled work due to the inability to lower prices due to high competition markets, so there would be less jobs available for unskilled workers.
After compiling multiple case studies involving economists and legal professionals, it has been found that both have differing opinions about what the best solution would be. Professionals that are for an increase in minimum wage with inflation, they believe that the minimum wage workers are more than likely to spend more money on a product given the prospect of expendable income. They believe this could be a catalyst for the economy and for employers hiring more. These economists also believe that an increase in minimum wage could be mitigating in most cases. That means that the percentage paid out is negligible in comparison to the profit that a business would make. Businesses can soften the blow by reducing the hours that they hire workers or the benefits provided to full-time, cutting pay of the higher skilled workers, or hiring less of the ones that get paid more.
There are also professionals who are against the increase in the minimum wage law. They are against it because they believe that the minimum wage increase would be detrimental to the work environment. Basically what they're saying is that businesses would reduce the demand for new workers because the gap being closed by workers being paid more, and the need for unskilled labor would decrease, and they would not need to hire people who are unskilled because of increased costs. And they also believe that this would affect job security in the long run and would shorten the lifespan of a job and getting benefits, and this is due to the decrease in the net profit for a business due to an increase in cost.
After being presented with the facts that we had found, we decided that minimum wage laws should definitely increase, but they should be doing so over time. The reason for an increase is primarily regarding the fact that someone working a 40-hour work week cannot reach poverty line or live on minimum wage. But the reason that we need small installments is so that businesses aren't shocked into making workers less in the market. This entails that we need to increase minimum wage by an arbitrary amount that's consistent over time. For instance, 75 cents every 2 years. Doing this creates a space for business to accommodate their new models into a paradigm, and that means that workers can be afforded even if they cost more money. This also helps consolidate businesses on wage increase. Tight competition doesn't push workers out of the market this way. Instead, workers are actually more necessary and treasured due to the fact that they're going to be invested in over time.